market. In case you guys didn't know, this is for color correction.
I wonder if he actually uses that. I don't think he does.
Probably not.
No, he just eyeballs it because he's a professional.
I have no idea how to use video editing software, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't use this either. Probably just render it out, like, it's good.
Well, we bought it, so we're using it.
All right. As you guys know, the Not So Round Table is kind of our version of a talk show where we answer questions as posed by you guys, our fans and viewers. So if you haven't watched the previous episodes of the Not So Round Table, I encourage you to do so because there's a plethora of knowledge in there about all things airsoft, opinions, facts, information, anecdotes, old stories, things like that. And so in this episode, Mason and I are going to be answering questions. We're taking a little break from the norm, changing things up a little bit, in addition to pulling questions from the Helm of Reasoning, which I was too lazy to cut out. So we're just going to take questions from the last episode. I've also been doing Instagram Ask Me Anythings on our Airsoft Evike Instagram. I've taken all those, the ones that I didn't get to answer, along with the usernames, and I've saved them to my phone. So we're going to be answering those questions as well. This episode's also going to be kind of rapid fire. We haven't done one in a minute, and so Mason and I are going to try to get through as many questions and answers as possible without being too drawn out.
I'm game. Let's do it.
Cool. You want to start us off? We'll start with the ones from, let's start with the ones from the YouTube Not So Round Table.
Got it.
The questions I've selected are from episode 168, which was the Hot Ones episode, where you guys did hot sauces, and there were some great questions in the comment section. I would encourage you guys, again, if you have a question, put it in the comment section, because that's where we pull the questions from you guys directly. We don't come up with any questions ourselves. So if you have a burning question, you want something answered, you're curious about something, please put it in the comment section below.
Speaking of burning, that Hot Ones episode was hot. If you've never done the Hot Ones challenge, it's challenging, but I made it without drinking a single drop of milk.
You'll have to watch the episode to find out if he's lying. I feel like I drank milk watching you guys. Anyway, so you want to start us off?
Sure, let's just go down the list here.
All right.
So, T Bricks asks, Dear Insert, what are some basic upgrades I can do to an AEG that give it better range? Thanks for the show. Keep up the good work. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. So, good upgrades to give it better range. First off, I would say barrel and bucking. Those are the first two upgrades that I always recommend to any player that has a stock standard AEG and is looking for the best bang for your buck upgrades that are easy to do and most effective, I would argue. Do you agree?
Yeah. I think something that airsofters fall into a lot is, oh, well, if I wanted to shoot farther, I needed to shoot harder. So FPS is going to give me range. And while that's partially true, I mean, more air volume does give you more velocity and then more range. I would argue, and I think you would agree, that accuracy is far better than just blatant range.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. Accuracy is key because consistency to place shots on the same part every time will get you kills in game more reliably than, oh, my BB can go further, but it's all over the place.
Especially if you are upgrading your bucking and you can put more precise pressure on a BB to give it proper backspin, it will shoot farther and be more accurate at distance.
Right, and you can get more velocity without changing your spring by going to a tighter bore barrel. So most stock barrels are like 6.05, 6.06. Yeah, 6.06. So if you go to a 6.03, then that volume of air that you have is going to be more efficient at accelerating the BB, and it's not going to bleed past it nearly as much. So tighter bore barrel, high quality bucking, both of those combined is going to be around the, I mean, if you get like a barrel for 50, 60 bucks and then a bucking for another 10 or 20, then you're under 100 bucks for a definite step up in improvement.
Yeah, there are great hop-up units on the market. You don't need those right out of the box. You might also be wondering why manufacturers don't just include 6.03 and 6.01 inner barrels, because they can't rely on airsofters by and large to clean their inner barrels. And the tighter bore you go, the more dust and dirt getting into the barrel if you're playing outdoors is going to have an effect on the trajectory of the BB. So a larger diameter barrel doesn't need to be cleaned as often, or will perform reasonably consistently, even if it's not clean.
Very true. So clean your barrels.
That can go a long way. Even when you a brand new airsoft gun, clean the barrel.
It goes a long way, pun intended.
Yes.
Yes. Next question. You take it.
All right. This one's from Napadat. Napadat? 4567. How would shooting the different types of airsoft guns in space work? By types, I mean AEG, gas blowback, HPA, etc.
In space.
In space.
So with Newton's laws, action reaction, right? But you're shooting an airsoft gun, which is shooting a very, very lightweight projectile. So, I mean, when you're in space, you have no friction. That would still impart a force on you, but it would be so minuscule, your BB would accelerate about the same as it would in atmosphere, I would argue.
Yeah, I would say the only one that won't work is the AEG.
Why?
So, because an AEG draws air from the atmosphere into the cylinder, right? There's nothing to compress, therefore there's no
it'd be
propellant.
in a vacuum.
Right, but HPA and CO2 should be fine.
Because you have the air source right there.
Yeah.
It's in the magazine.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, although, the cool down effect of space.
It would freeze.
Yeah, I don't know how that would, but yeah, I think there's not enough, I don't think there's enough force exerted on the BB
to push you
propel
back
you
or
backwards.
Right.
Who knows? We've got to go to space. Here's the thing. Elon, I know you're watching. Bring us to space, and we will bring airsoft guns, and we will perform these scientific tests for you in space.
It's important. The world needs to know.
Yeah. We've already done airsoft games at like nuclear facilities that have been decommissioned, training facilities.
We are experts.
On ships. I think we're well prepared to play airsoft in space.
Yeah.
It's just a fact that we're experts.
Just got to get there.
Yeah. So there you go. I thought that was a fun question.
Cool. All right, so next one. Tibor Widman asks, or is it Tibor Weidman? I don't know. Either one. Dear Insert, will Airsoft ever move away from the standards like the M4, AK, etc.? Why don't innovative guns like the Hudson H9 ever gain traction? I would say off the bat, it's just because the ecosystems for those unique guns don't already exist. They need to, the gun needs to come out and then the ecosystem needs to develop around that gun, and that takes time. And so it's so much easier for people to buy into an M4 or an AK or an MP5 where accessories, magazines, holsters, slings, etc. already exist for that system, and you just get everything right away. It's like, it's the old thing of we like instant gratification. Right. And it's also just easier, more accessible to get an M4, have all the accoutrements, do whatever you want, versus get a unique system, which oftentimes is not just unique on the outside, it's also sometimes unique on the inside. So replacement parts are difficult to get, upgrades are maybe non-existent at the time. So it's just, it's a multi-layered, multifaceted problem. And it's unfortunate because we love seeing very unique stuff like the Hudson H9 come out and hopefully do well, and then it's always kind of a bummer when time after time it seems like they just fall short.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. I was going to come at it from the manufacturing standpoint as well, as companies that make products like to bet on a sure thing, right? So a lot of companies continue to build or make M4s because they know that shops carry replacement parts for them, like you touched on, and upgrades for them and accessories for them. Whereas if they make something unique, the sales will be low because there aren't a lot of upgrades and accessories for them, right? So ultimately, they're building something to sell. And if people aren't buying it because there's not a market behind it, then it just doesn't get developed,
so
which sucks.
Risk on both sides. There's risk as a buyer, as a consumer, into buying into something new and then it not being supported in the future. And there's risk on the manufacturing side of buying into something new and nobody buys it. Yeah. So it's like if nobody takes the risk on both sides.
A perfect example is how many times, this is insider information, how many times have we taken on a product that a manufacturer has made that would not exist in the airsoft industry because no one else had bought it or paid for it or was interested, and we were the ones that were like, yeah, we'll take them all. Whatever you made, I know it's super niche, whatever it is, we'll take it because we want to offer that to the industry. But we're taking that huge risk in a way that no one else does. And sometimes those just sit because they're not that popular. But otherwise, it wouldn't exist. So.
Right. So as cool as it is to get something new and unique, it's just one of those things that unfortunately happens in the industry where the M4 is always going to be there and it's always going to be the most popular because it's been around the longest.
Yep. All right, next question is from KidBlaze210. This one's also from 167 and 168. He asked the question in both episodes, so thanks, KidBlaze. Can VR be a good training tool for Airsoft? In parentheses, I'll always pick Airsoft over VR, but at times when I can't, I find myself using similar moments from Airsoft to VR.
Have you any experience in VR?
I played VR one time at Roger's house. I played the Beat Sabers.
Beat Saber? That's one of my
I was
favorite
terrible
games.
at it. I can't.
So I have a VR headset. I've done a little bit of first-person shooter stuff in VR, just like in I forget the program. It's been forever since I played. But anyway, it's called Pavlov. Yeah. So I played a little bit of Pavlov. Okay. Anyway, so weapons handling, I wouldn't say necessarily communicates one-to-one because you're pressing buttons instead of actually manipulating the thing. Yeah, you do have to like take one hand to the other to reload sometimes, etc. But so weapons manipulation, I wouldn't say translates from VR to the real world airsoft games. But I would say that you can still employ tactics like corner clearing, checking your six, communication with your teammates, and also presenting your pistol or your rifle and getting a good sight picture and
which still needs to be done though with a physical.
It's difficult in VR because for a rifle you have two hands up, but they're both kind of not attached. Right. So your aim is difficult.
So your M4 changes in length
a little bit, and you can't really brace it against your shoulder as well. I mean, some people print 3D things, and then they can still brace it.
Okay.
So there's some workarounds there, but I would say that tactics is the biggest one that can translate, as well as communication, which is a part of tactics.
Yeah.
I'd say that those can translate, but the physical stuff,
I would say, movement. Like that's the one thing Airsoft can do. Movement behind cover, movement with a group of people, like actual physical movement, like running. Like you can't do that in VR. And granted, I know there are like modern places that have those like bowl things that you and maybe that's a little bit more realistic. No,
yeah, that'd be crazy.
Yeah,
have a whole room set up for that.
Yeah. All right, moving on because I don't want to run out of time here. Also, I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video. We're going to be choosing our favorite question from this episode.
Oh, yeah.
I completely forgot. So from the Instagram AMA and from the questions from our previous episode, we're going to be choosing our favorite question at the end of the episode to do a giveaway, and we're gonna do a cool prize
that we get to choose.
That we're gonna choose.
Yeah. Don't worry, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. We'll post it at the end of the video, but you have to wait till the end of the video to find out what it is. I don't know what I'm talking about. All right, let's keep going.
Wolf Centurion from episode 167, a couple episodes ago, says, when you did the review for the Falcor Recce and Blitz, you did an in-depth breakdown of the internals of the E-Silver Edge gearbox. My question is, what are the changes in the Silver Edge gearbox, and what are the changes between the older Silver Edge and the new E-Silver Edge 2.0?
Yeah.
So what are the differences between those two? So it isn't the whole MOSFET thing new?
So the major difference is that the SDU 2.0, their electronics package, and the Silver Edge 2.0 gearbox, which is made for the SDU 2.0, which is their electronics package, is out of the box one of the most efficient in terms of current draw gearboxes out of the box. They're very, very nice. With that said, because the SDU 2.0 is kind of its own unique shape, the gearbox shell had to be made to fit that exactly. And so if you plan on doing your own aftermarket trigger board MOSFET, you'll want to go with one of the older standard Silver Edge gearboxes because those are more well laid out for upgraded trigger board MOSFETs. But the SDU 2.0 in the E-Silver Edge 2, the later model Silver Edge gearboxes are great. They're both quick change spring capable, but they're both really good gearboxes. You can't go wrong with either.
You still use standard parts like a piston, a standard cylinder. Gears, do they use a Hall sensor?
Man, I can't remember.
Yeah, it's been a little while. So, but watch the video, and most of the other parts in there are compatible with aftermarket. So if you have a question, you can always email tech@Evike.com. tech@Evike.com, and they'll get right back to you on questions for upgrades, accessories, etc. So.
All right. Moving on to our Instagram AMA questions.
Yeah, that's it for the paper, so let's put that in the helm.
All right, you ready for these?
All right, so these are coming off your phone.
Yep. All right, this one's from Caleb Adam 04. This was a couple weeks ago. I've done 3 AMAs so far where I was asking questions. What is the best way to get into milsimming for beginners? It's my dream!
Nice. It's a good dream to have, and milsim's a lot of fun. If you've never done it, I would highly recommend trying it. So quickly before we answer your question, just want to make sure if it's your first time going to a milsim, please make sure you're prepared with like food and water beforehand. Too often we see heat casualties out at milsim games where they just didn't hydrate enough. So hydrate the night before, definitely, and also have water on your person, whether it's water bottles or a hydration flask. Hydrate, 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 definitely.
Yeah.
So the question
if you do
was,
nothing else.
Yeah, nothing else. Hydrate.
Hydrate.
100%. So how do you get into?
Yeah. What's the best way to get into milsimming for beginners?
I mean,
it's my dream.
You just got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. So I think it's important to note that you do not need to have a team or squad or group of people to go to a milsim event at. My suggestion would be peruse YouTube. Watch, some of your favorite Airsoft YouTubers and the games they go to. And if any of those appeal to you, most, if not all, of the Airsoft YouTubers talk about the event that they're going to and who the host is, which you can, Google and look up. They have signups regularly for the events that they're coming up with. And if you want to know what to bring, how to dress, what the rules are, every single event coordinator that throws Airsoft milsim events has a rules and player packet that they send out with your ticket purchase to tell you exactly what you need, what the rules are, what the camo requirements are. And so if you're wondering what you need to bring with you, that packet will tell you. Every milsim company is a little bit different and it has slightly different rules and requires you to bring certain different things. But I think by and large, as long as you have a set of tan or green camos, whichever one you prefer, you can buy a ticket for that side, some iPro, and your AEG, your gas blowback gun of choice, you're good to go.
Basically, preparation is key. So like Matt was saying, read the materials that they provide. So read the rules, be familiar with the rules, whether they have medic systems, how to contact people in an emergency, what sort of forms you need to fill out. Just read almost every single word. Read every single word. They
RTFM.
Yeah, exactly.
Or C, depending if you play Magic.
Read everything. Make sure you're prepared ahead of time, because far too often, just like with the hydration thing, people show up and they're unprepared. They're in the wrong camos. The gun shoots too hot.
I didn't know I needed water.
Yeah, or hey, I don't have that armband or medic system. I don't have the ACE bandage, or I don't have the
milsim Westband tourniquet.
Tourniquet. Yeah, be prepared. So preparation is the best thing you can do for any milsim, especially your first one, because that'll make sure your first experience is much better. You can focus on the gameplay rather than just keeping up.
Yeah. Next up, we've got this one's from Jeremy Circa. This one's going to be quick.
All right.
CO2 or green gas, pros and cons.
So CO2, you get a more consistent FPS out of it, shot for shot, whereas green gas can start off pretty strong and quickly falls down to about a medium range. When it gets down to the last few shots, of course, it tapers off gradually, whereas CO2, it seems to be like it's pretty consistent right off the bat.
So it maintains a more consistent pressure
There we go.
through a wider temperature range.
There you go.
So as you're off-gassing green gas, the magazine cools, which condenses the gas and liquid in the magazine more. So it's not as expanding as rapidly, so you're going to get a lower FPS performance, whereas CO2 has a higher overall pressure and can maintain that pressure through a wider range of temperatures. So as the magazine cools down, it maintains that pressure, which is better for colder environments when you already are at a limitation in terms of the ambient temperature. Your magazines will cool down much faster.
Right, but CO2 is more expensive.
And requires a stronger hammer or stronger spring in your gun to make sure that it can actuate the valve. So there are trade-offs.
So a little bit of more wear and tear on your gun, and green gas is quicker to fill, I'd argue, but that's minimal.
Yeah. Speaking of magazines, or green gas magazines, Nick Frank 06 asks, my green gas pistol mags leak and I don't know how to fix it. Can you help?
Sure. So depending on where it's leaking from, there's a number of rubber gaskets and seals in a magazine or on a magazine. Oh, thank you. That may need changing out. So you've got a gasket around the base of the magazine. You can see the seam right there. So you've got a gasket right there. You've also got O-rings on the valve, and then you've also got a gasket up top here, which is part of this packing right here. So depending on where it's leaking from, you can replace those seals entirely. You can also maybe reconstitute them by taking the seal out and soaking it overnight in 100% silicone oil and putting it back together. So
funny story. So if it's leaking out of here, the second O-ring on the valve has failed.
Oh, okay.
So each one of the back valves has two O-rings. The O-ring for the actual seal of it being threaded in, and then the O-ring on the stem. So if the stem O-ring has failed, this will leak.
Got it.
And if the back is leaking, then the main Yeah.
And then lastly, there's the fill valve, which is a very common place for it to leak out of, and that's often just because people fill it aggressively, bend something, and that's just more easily replaced than anything. You can get to that fill valve pretty quickly and just unscrew it, put a new one in. So that's how I would address a leaky magazine.
Final question of the episode, and then we'll pick our favorite. Now, we're going to keep these episodes to like, 20 to 25 minutes, and we're going to do another episode using, similar questions. We're going to give one prize away to each of our favorite questions in those episodes. This one is specifically geared to you.
Oh, okay.
This one comes from Thickus83, THICCUS83. That's not why I picked it.
Only 2 C's.
Yeah, only 2 C's. All right. PP19 Bizon or CZ Scorpion. Which do you think is better?
From an airsoft standpoint and a real firearm standpoint, I would say the Bizon is superior because it uses in airsoft, it uses a version 3 gearbox versus a Scorpion. I'm assuming they mean the CZ Scorpion, like the CZ.
It didn't say.
Oh, so like a modern Scorpion, like an Evo?
I mean, I think between the two, the Evo would probably be the
Evo
superior.
would be superior. So hands down, if we're talking about the Scorpion Evo, definitely the Evo.
Because generally, the Scorpion is not referred to as a CZ Scorpion in airsoft.
Yeah.
It's referred to as the VZ61.
VZ61, that's what I couldn't think of.
Yeah. So I would imagine they're talking about the Scorpion Evo.
Initially, I was thinking about the VZ61.
Yeah. Definitely. If we're going PP19 Bizon versus the CZ61 or VZ61, go Bizon.
All right, so I changed my answer based on that information. The Scorpion Evo, hands down, over a Bizon in real steel or airsoft.
Modern ergonomics, easier to store magazines.
Definitely.
Yeah. Although the Bizon is super unique looking.
It's different. If you want different, go for that. But just those mags.
Yeah.
I can't get around that. I'd go with the PP19 before I did the Bizon.
Well, you've made it to the end of this Not So Roundtable episode. I know we're keeping it brief. Don't worry, episode 170 will be coming very, very soon. We're going to answer even more questions as pulled from my Evike Instagram AMAs. So we're going to be giving away a prize in 170 as well. But for our favorite question in episode 169 is Tibor Widman or Tibor Weidman. Tibor Widman. Dear Insert, will Airsoft ever move away from the standards? Why don't innovative guns like the Hudson H9 ever gain traction? That's our favorite question from this episode. Congratulations, Tibor. Here's what you won. You've won an EMG Crytac P90 AEG. Here's how to claim your prize. Tibor, comment below in this video with the word watermelon in all caps, along with your email address. We'll reach out to your email address as soon as we see your comment. Congrats!
Thanks for watching the Not So Roundtable. Tune in again next month where we answer your questions. If you have more burning questions, we can provide answers. Leave them in the comment section below. See you next time.